On this episode of Purposely Curious, we look into shady music record labels throughout the years. I focus on my idol's Aaliyah's record label, Blackground, but as the conversation flowed, we delved into other famous artists who fought for better contracts after realizing they were being taken advantage of. We also discuss what will the future of the big record labels look like. Get nice and cozy as we look into the bad side of the music industry. Hello, Leonie. How are you?
Greetings, Mary. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. How's the weather this week?
Weather's nice.
It is. We were just discussing one of the hottest weekends last weekend. We're recording this on Saturday. Today is the 12th, I believe. But in LA, I think you said it was 113, 116?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like 116 where I live and like 121 where my friends live. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty hot. We tend to have a few days out of the year that get up there. So obviously you have places like Las Vegas where it's all summer, it's over 100 degrees. But here it's mostly, I would say, in the 80s, 90s in the summer. And then we have like these heat waves where it really pushes up there.
Yeah.
So it was pretty nasty. I just stayed home that day. I think Sunday night I went to a concert with social distancing. You know, it was like a drive-in concert. So I went at nighttime and I had a dress on, and it was still hot, but not as bad as Saturday.
Right.
So I'm just glad that, I felt a little chilly this morning when I got up. I came to my kitchen, made some coffee. So that was a nice feeling of feeling a little cool and cold in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I opened my kitchen window and my bedroom window, and you could just smell the fires. It was crazy. I don't smell them now, so I don't know if my nose has gotten accustomed to it, but we'll see tomorrow when I repeat this routine again. It's been kind of crazy fires.
Yeah, it's crazy. I live 12 miles away from the fires right now.
Oh, which one is that?
The, what are they calling it? I keep wanting to say the bacon fire. It's not the bacon fire.
Yeah, but you're close to one, essentially.
Yeah, it's the one in Monrovia, just above Monrovia. It's off the 210 freeway. Monrovia is like pretty much just east of Pasadena, so it's not that far away,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully this cooler weather will help the firefighters who are working hard and diligent, and the prisoners who are also helping the firefighters bring these fires into control.
Yeah.
I know that one of them was started by a gender reveal.
Oh, geez.
Which is the second one that we've seen in California in the last 2 years. So there's a video circulating of a gender reveal that was from like 2 years ago. It's not this one, but I guess people just run with things. So that was kind of sad. We have that reputation, starting fires in California for gender reveals.
But I'm like, I don't get it. They picked like the hottest day of the year to be out there in the near the woods, and then they're like, "Hey, let's set off a pyrotechnic." I'm like, "Oh God."
Yeah, it's crazy. And I get it. Everybody's super excited. Obviously in America, for those of you who don't live here, we like to go big. And when I went to England or stuff like that, it was like baby showers were just women. It was a cute little get together, but here in America we were already having the parties with co-ed baby showers. Some people had DJs. It's like, I'm not surprised. It's just an American thing.
Yeah,
every year it's like getting worse.
It's crazy.
Now we're starting fires.
I know, right? So crazy.
But it is, yeah. So crazy. So I hope it's the last of those gender reveal fires. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I hope so. I mean, but it's not just that. It's like there's always like, if it's not that, it's always some like random person who's out there in the woods, you know, like, oh, I went hiking. Then it's like I started a campfire, and it's just like, what are you doing? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like you're not, but because all these years, we have fires here every year, like almost on schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I,
Yeah. It's
I keep
normal.
I keep like thinking like, is that is it arson? Like, is it somebody who just gets off on it's like, hey, let's set everything on fire, and then it's like sometimes it's animals, right? And then sometimes it's just stupid things like a car pulled over and the hot exhaust touched the side and it caught it's just like random things, but
Right.
it
Right.
happens. It just happens. It's so bizarre. It just
Yeah.
happens.
It is bizarre. But the other thing too, it's a natural like thing that happens
Right.
in the mountains even before we were here. In order for it's like a cycle of renovation, not renovation, what is the word I'm looking for new growth. You have nat. Oh, I saw this documentary and I can't think of the word.
Not
Regeneration.
regeneration.
Yes. So obviously, we're obviously building things in these mountains, and
Right.
it's a risk you run. But yes, some of them are started by people and all the reasons that you said. And because if you guys have ever been to like Yosemite or any Sequoia, any of those, they have they start fires on purpose that are um, meant to help with the regeneration of wildlife, of
Right.
trees and everything, because they realize that it's something that happens naturally, whether we're there or not. But I do know that obviously we're adding fuel to this because of stupidity or, like you said, a car burning, off the freeway,
Right.
which I have seen. And then next thing you know, the whole hill is up in flames.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that will be the end of it.
Yeah. I hope so too.
But I wanted to talk today about the recording label called Blackground Records. Have you heard of them?
Blackground. No, I can't say I have.
Okay.
How?
Have you heard of JoJo or Aaliyah?
Yes, definitely. Come out,
Timbaland.
wherever you are. That's Aaliyah's famous line from Queen of the Damned.
Queen of the Damned, yes. So Aaliyah is my only idol, was my only idol growing up. I was obsessed with her before she died. I think I said in one of the episodes I used to part my hair. I part my hair sideways now because I'm so used to it and I can't see myself without it that way. But I
Right.
started to part my hair to the side because I wanted to dress like her. Um, so she is so in like she's part of my childhood. Like you have no other artist that has. She was my role model essentially.
Nice.
Um, we all know that she died on August 25th of 2001. And that is a day that I will never ever forget because I was supposed to go to a K-Rock concert and my parents didn't let me because my cousin was getting married. So
What
I
concert
was
was that?
forced.
Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think it was Winnie Roast. I won tickets at
Ah.
Tower Records on Sunset Boulevard. And my parents were like, no, we're going to your cousin's wedding. And I was furious, right?
Yeah.
But, then I went to the wedding, and that's where I met my first boyfriend, the first love of my life,
Nice.
essentially. So that day is ingrained. But after I
Right.
went home, is when I found out. We didn't have smartphones. Is when I found out that Aaliyah had died, and I was devastated. At that point, that brought my obsession with her to another level.
Right.
She was a full-on entertainer. She was essentially a singer, an actress, a dancer. In my opinion, Beyonce fans are going to hate to hear this. In my opinion, I felt like Beyonce wouldn't have been as big as she is now if Aaliyah was still around. Not Beyonce, but Aaliyah was already acting and getting rave reviews. She was going to come out in The Matrix, right?
Right.
So she was ahead of her game. And I mean, just again, I'm just a huge fan of hers. So as this started to progress, right, I didn't know anything more than what we know at this time, right? We talked about when we were talking about the music industry, we talked about the fact of the song of Aaliyah with R. Kelly, right?
Right.
So rewind to her first album, which is Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. That was not under Blackground Records. That was under R. Kelly's label. Now, obviously, we know what happened, and if you did not know what happened, she lied that she was 18 when she was, I believe, 14 or 15, and married R. Kelly. It was an illegal. I don't know if it was legal because, believe it or not, in America, it is legal to marry with the permission of your parents in certain states if you're underage.
Right.
So I don't know. The point is, she lied about her age. Somehow they got the marriage certificate. There was a lot of fraud going on there, right? The parents found out, they had it annulled, and then she ended up on Blackground Records. Blackground Records is essentially owned by her uncle, who apparently had a really shady past. But we didn't know any of that at the time, right? What the reason I wanted to bring this up is because Aaliyah's music, Aaliyah has a huge following of people in my age demographics because we grew up with her. Like she was like the shit. She was. There's a video on MTV where Beyonce is interviewing her on the red carpet just to kind of show you where things stood at that
Right.
time.
Right.
And that was for the MTV, Video Music Awards. Sadly, she died. She was 21. I mean, she was not even close to her prime, you know? There was an album that was released after, which had like her greatest hits plus some unreleased tracks on Blackground Records. I don't know why I struggled there. But then all of a sudden, you couldn't find her albums anywhere. And so if you guys go on Apple, Spotify, you name it, the only music you will find is anything that was prior to Blackground Records, which is
Huh.
the R. Kelly era. And that is because the uncle just stopped selling it. Like not selling it, but he had the rights and owned everything.
Oh wow.
So people were like, how come, or the new generation is like, well, mom loves Aaliyah, but I can't find shit, like what's going on? Like people started to kind of look into it. And again, maybe because I was really young, it turns out that the uncle is really shady. There was another singer called JoJo,
Right.
who at the time I think she was signed when she was 13, but I also liked her song like Get Out. I can't remember the lyrics, but she also disappeared. But I just thought she was like a 1-2 album hit wonder, right?
Right. Right.
Not realizing she was under this label. So she had been going to court to get out of that contract so that she can record. So basically, the label was holding everybody hostage.
Oh damn.
We all know Timbaland, right?
Yeah.
Timbaland is one of the biggest producers. Timbaland essentially became big because of Aaliyah, because he literally, with his second album, was him and Missy Elliott. They weren't big yet, right?
Right.
They weren't artists. They were just paid producers. Her second album is produced entirely by them, except for some that are like Jermaine Dupri in there.
Right.
But then they had to like fight to get out of the contracts. They made it big, post, the death of Aaliyah or whatever. But there were rumors that his name is Barry, was like shady as fuck. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's still going. So, JoJo is now, I believe, in her 20s, and she released her first album under her own label this year. And
Really.
so, yeah. And so to support her, I actually went on Apple Music and, I was like, poor girl's been fighting. And I went online. She had been going to court since, I mean, she was still a teenager. So even though she's still in her 20s, it's almost like a decade of her fighting to be able to record. And that's something that we have seen with Taylor Swift, right? She didn't have access or control over her music. And so there was that fight. Was it this year or last year? That was kind of like a big thing.
Yeah, it was last year. But I think I think it was one of those things where she thought she had control over music, and then the person who had the rights to it ended up selling her catalog to somebody else, right? To the person she hated, somebody she had a falling out with, right?
I think so, yeah.
And then, so her whole thing was, I don't know if she did, but she was saying that she was gonna re-record everything, and at least that was a rumor. She was telling her fans that, hey, like, don't, like, stop buying the old stuff. I'm gonna release it when I re-record it,
Mm-hmm.
because she didn't want them. She didn't want him to get all the royalties and all that. So I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, it's a sad story. It's like, these are stories of people that sign deals with, um, shady people in essence, because they knew that you had somebody, 1,000-page contract. There's something in there that is going to show you, something hidden in the fine print, that it's like, we own everything, or you can't do nothing, you can't release anything, or you can't record. It's like there's so many clauses. It's I don't know. It's really scary. Especially when you're that young, and somebody's waving money in front of you and says, "Hey, here's $100,000 just to get you started." But you got to sign. I mean, who's gonna say no, right?
Exactly. And I think that's what kind of happened to TLC. Do you
Right.
remember them?
Yes.
They were killing it, selling millions of records, right?
Yeah.
They weren't getting shit. Like, and after they won the Grammy, they literally said it in a press conference, essentially.
Right.
And they went to war, not war, but another. It went downhill for they they started to fight, I guess, to get better money.
Right.
Um, so yes. So the other thing too is that something has happened between. So I don't know if you guys saw that Drake and Chris Brown had Aaliyah tracks like in the last 5 years. And so the uncle, potentially needing money, sold those to them so that, because they have to pay him to use those tracks, right?
Right. Right.
So the family, the Houghton, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, foundation, basically does not talk to Uncle Barry. We're going to call him Uncle Barry from Blackground Records.
Okay.
I was also able to look. Now, again, this could be the whole conspiracy end of it. Aaliyah died at the age of 21 after having filmed her Rock the Boat music video. What I saw essentially was they had done like 2 music videos in a week, and the brother had said that this was after she died. In an interview that's public, you can find it on YouTube, where he basically, his name is Rashad, where he basically was like, they had never filmed 2 music videos back to back like that, and they had like kind of filmed most of it in Miami, and the uncle basically said at the last minute, we're gonna go to the Bahamas because I want to do this and this, but her mom and brother would always go with Aaliyah everywhere, and they happened to do this when they weren't, in town.
Right.
So she went out there, did the music video, and then that's when on the way back, she had the accident. But there was a flight that people that didn't want to fly them because they had too much luggage. So somehow they found another company who was willing to, with what do you call it?
Charter.
A charter plane. But no, he had very little experience. But what they're saying is that they also in the flight log had said that they didn't want to because of that it was too high, like it was too heavy.
Right.
And they're saying that she was adamant, but I guess what there's questioning as to whether that's true. They feel that that was made on purpose for that to happen, because apparently she was in the works of maybe after this album that was coming out, leaving the label. She was the biggest act for the label.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Now that's again just a conspiracy. But the videos that I saw of the brother, when he would talk about the uncle or the label, he would roll his eyes. And this was right after she died. They don't do interviews anymore. This was essentially back then. They had interviewed Mary J. Blige, on BET, and they asked her what she thought. Again, this was back then, and she says she believed it was murder, and all these things you can find online. They're like on their YouTube videos, and she won't. Again, it's not now. Everyone doesn't say anything. You know, it's been 20 something years, right?
Right, right.
But I thought that was very interesting. But going back to the TLC thing, I was also able to find Jimi Hendrix had a terrible, terrible um, contract. I think he was getting like pennies for every dollar or for every sale. He was getting shit basically.
Right.
So the last few years of his music career, he was unhappy. Sometimes didn't want to play because he was in a legal battle, ongoing legal battle, to try to make more. He was making like, and I'm exaggerating, but like 3 cents for every dollar, and the guy in charge was pocketing the rest.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sure you, having worked in the music industry, have probably heard some things about record labels taking advantage of the young and naive and underrepresented represented
Yeah.
artists.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was there in the music scene right after this band really. I'll just give you one example because there's many, but there's the one notable one is the Goo Goo Dolls. Remember them?
Yes, I love them.
Yeah, they. It's interesting because they were more like a metal band, and they had one song on the record that did not fit, and it was a much slower song. It was like the song called Name, and my boss was the one who actually played that song and got them on the radio on rotation. Next thing you know, they got famous, they got huge, right? So they signed a deal, a bad deal, once again, like you said, where they're getting pennies on the dollar, okay? And for example, at the time CDs were selling for like $15, $19. They were a little expensive, right? And for every CD sale, they were making pennies. But see, the thing is, when they signed the deal, they were giving I don't remember what it was. It was like $15,000 or $30,000 up front, and that's tempting when you're like working 2 part-time jobs as a busboy and all that, and then it's like, hey, here's some money to get started, and then they tell you you're gonna become a big star, So, anyways, long story short, they signed such a bad deal that it took them like, I don't know if it was 10 or 15 years later to like recuperate till the contract ended, where they could then start actually making money. And here's the crazy thing. Do you remember the movie called, what was that movie with Nicolas Cage? City of Angels. Did you ever see that movie?
Yes.
So it had a very notable soundtrack because of the song, right? Remember the song? The song by the...
Want the world
That's right.
me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand.
That's
Sorry.
right. That's right. And the song was called Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls. And believe it or
Memories.
not, at that point, I didn't know this. I didn't know this because I knew it was number one on the radio, okay? But I know the guy who played lead guitar, he's a session guitarist, and there's an interview with him on YouTube, and he was saying, this is an interview from like a year ago, he was saying that song was not the number one song in the US. That was the number one song in the world at the time. That's how huge that song was. So, I mean, imagine that. Imagine how many millions of records that soundtrack sold, as well as their albums and everything. And at the time, they were still touring. And I know because they used to come around and they used to play shows for us. And I remember every time I would see them, like, I would just, like, think in the back of my head, man, these guys have had it bad, like, really rough, And
Yeah.
if I say, if anybody wants to check it out, you can go on YouTube and just type in Goo Goo Dolls Behind the Music. There's a documentary about that, and my boss is even in the documentary too. And they discuss,
nice.
how he made the song, big, and how they signed the worst deal ever. Think about this: you have the number one song in the world, and as soon as the tour is over, you're going back to your hometown in Buffalo, New York, as a bus boy to wash dishes.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so sad,
It really is. And none of us at the time knew that that was happening
Yeah,
because we
nobody
only
knew.
see the glitz and the glamour,
Right,
right? The
right.
music videos. And so essentially that's what happened here. And the other thing, do you remember NSYNC and the Backstreet
Oh
Boys?
yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah.
So there was Lou Pearlman, who's now dead, I believe,
Yes, yeah.
but he also went to jail. And NSYNC at their biggest and the Backstreet Boys at their biggest were selling millions. I would even say billions because boy bands were the shit back then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They were broke essentially. They were
Yep,
getting paid shit.
yep.
And they also took him to court. Again, they were a lot of them were minors, so the moms got excited, signed, and they. I think the key is that not if we're gonna sign a record deal, we need a lawyer there with us,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like people are just signing, and he was um, charged with conspiracy, money laundering, making false statements, had over $300 million in debts. Long story short, he was in jail and he died in jail. So you don't, that's another thing you can find. There's documentaries where actually some of the band members of both of these bands, or three, four bands actually, make an appearance. That's also on YouTube about Mr. Lou Pearlman and the boy bands. And so he definitely took them to the cleaners. Obviously, a lot of them are okay now financially.
Right.
But like you said, and like I said with the song, the R&B singer JoJo, and the reason I'm supporting her is because she's been in this battle for 10 years, right? To get to do her own thing.
Right.
So it's out now, and exactly what you said on your end. And then I started to research, and Timbaland, before he really made it big, remember we talked about how he worked exclusively with Aaliyah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, I found articles from back then when he took Barry from the record label to court and was able to him basically the only reason why Timbaland and Missy got huge was because they were out of their contract under
Oh
him.
damn.
So he had an album with like Timbaland and Magoo. You cannot stream those on any of the streaming services because they're under Blackground Records.
Right.
Um, Aaliyah's camp said literally 2 weeks ago that they are talking to a record label, so they believe that her music will be on streaming soon. So I think the contract is ending or something is happening. I'm assuming probably there's some money issues and the guy's willing to sell at this point. So that we have that to look forward to.
So up
Another,
until
yeah,
I'm curious, up until this point right now, you have to have an Aaliyah CD, otherwise you don't have her music, right?
correct. So guess what? I had all her entire catalog, everything you can think of, on my Zune, Microsoft Zune, and
No, why?
yes, that shit does not turn the fuck
¿Por
on.
qué?
Porque soy tonta,
Oh my
estúpida.
god.
So when I was looking at this, I was like, I've been living in my apartment now for like 2 years, and you move, you throw shit away, and I'm like,
Right.
I'm getting ready for this. So I was able to find a DVD that she released with her album, which had music videos, interviews, and I still have that. But I don't have her other catalog. But I went on YouTube because some of the catalog is there. I still know the words word for word for every fucking song. It's ridiculous. Like I'm excited. I'm stoked to have that music. But yes, so just to show you how long ago she died. And then it was like silence. We can't purchase any of her music unless you already had purchased it, right? And
Right.
then all of a sudden, oh, Drake and Chris Brown are making music with Aaliyah tracks. And I really do believe that he was just looking for money because he's probably broke,
Which
So
one? Both of them?
no, Barry, the uncle, is
Oh, I'm
probably
sorry. Yeah,
broke.
yes,
And
yes.
since he owns the entire catalog but refuses to put it out there, right?
Right.
So there's been this like legal battle. But her people, her estate essentially said they were looking to work with people to get it published. So it sounds like he's probably going to give them up to the estate, which is great news for the new generation that doesn't know her.
Right.
So yeah. Oh, I just want to say I love her. I do. And my favorite songs, guys, was I Don't Wanna and Come Over. So look them up on YouTube. They're not on your streaming service. Look them up on YouTube. Kalani actually does a snippet of one of her songs in her new album, which I was kind of bummed. I mean, the music is gorgeous, but I just want Aaliyah's music to be like Aaliyah's music, but it's fine. I'll get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you know who else loves her?
who?
Adele.
Oh yeah.
You know who else loves her?
Adele knows what's up.
The Weeknd.
Oh yeah.
And Ciara.
He does.
And Beyonce. And Monica. And Chris Brown. Rihanna. Azalea Banks. Who else? Keisha Cole. J. Cole. Ryan
And they're
Destiny.
all around
Rita
her age.
Ora.
Yeah.
Arctic Monkeys. Okay.
Yep.
The XX.
Arctic Monkeys actually, there was a song. I saw this in a documentary of the Arctic Monkeys. I can't remember what song it was. They actually were inspired by an Aaliyah track. And I remember having more respect for them because I like the Arctic Monkeys. But it was one of their famous songs, literally was like inspired by an Aaliyah track. And they talk about it. The guys talk about it. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. And then, let me see who else. Chelsea Wolfe, who we had on our podcast not that long ago. Haim. Who else? Hayley Williams from Paramore. These are all bands that I just listed by reference that were all influenced by Aaliyah.
Yep.
How crazy is that? I mean, she crossed genres. She crossed into the rock genre. Into the singer-songwriter, into the R&B. It's like she was so highly respected, for having such a short-lived career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I still have, I had made this like a craft book of just pictures of her. Right. I still have that. So I was obsessed with her. Like I was wearing overalls, baggy overalls. I was really, when she was 21, when she died, I was 17. So, yeah, I'm obsessed with her. But yeah, look up those two songs if you want to know. And I used to sing those. I used to sing to my first love. I used to sing him. Probably I would be like so obsessed, and I'd start singing those songs. I'd put him to sleep. But I can sing, guys. I'm not gonna be like it was that bad that he was rather go to sleep. No,
he's a jerk. That's why. That's funny.
But another record label that's been kind of shady without living. How can we not talk about this? Living on the West Coast.
Oh, you're thinking
Come on, Leone.
Death Row.
Yes.
Death Row. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so the pattern we're seeing is that there's one person who's in charge who literally is out to get the artist
right
money.
Yeah.
And I think all of us kind of know where that went. There was a lot of crazy shit, I mean, LAPD Rampart divisions, cops were apparently working for him on the side. And I mean, there's a lot to get into there. But apparently there are also theories, not sure how true they are, that Tupac wanted to leave the label. And so some people think that he had something to do with his death.
Yeah.
Because he was threatening to go. We don't know how true that is. We also know that Dr. Dre we saw it also in the movie, right?
Yep.
Straight Outta Compton, where he was like, "This is shady. Where's our money?
Right.
We're getting the fuck out of here."
Right.
And so we all believe it. I mean, he's in jail for fucking running over somebody and was caught on video because he had been getting away with everything, right?
It's funny. It took all this time for technology to catch up on something.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because like you look at if it was on video back in the 80s, it'd have been like, I don't know, it's some blurry person. We can't tell who it is.
Exactly.
And today it's like there's cell phones everywhere or high quality cameras everywhere. And they're like, yep, that's his name.
Yeah, it's
Suge Knight,
crazy.
yeah.
Suge Knight. So, as a man that I'm afraid of, I'll tell you that much.
That's funny.
And also, Snoop Dogg left that label too, or he was in
Yeah.
the way. I think he was leaving the label when the whole thing with Tupac happened. So, there's a lot. I guess you can expect nothing less from record companies, right? When there's a lot of money involved. And so to see the history of the biggest bands, right?
Right.
Backstreet Boys, the
Right.
Goo Goo Dolls, Aaliyah, now we have this young artist, JoJo, TLC, Jimi Hendrix, getting shit, while the other guy is getting wealthy and rich. And so obviously they leave their legacy, music legacy. In that we all remember Jimi Hendrix. We don't remember who the fuck the other guy was, right?
Right.
But it's just sad that in the moment when they were alive, for those who are no longer with us, weren't getting the money that they wanted or deserved, right? And so that might have been a sense of unhappiness for them, even though they had so much fame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have any other examples?
I'm trying to think.
Or did I cover a lot of them?
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of them. Definitely. There's, I mean, there is a really good conversation about the record contracts and all that. Of all people, it was, and this, mind you, this is a podcast that's a video YouTube podcast that's probably 2 years old now. It's with a singer of Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan. He's talking to Joe Rogan, and mind you, they have long conversations, right? And on this podcast, on
Mm-hmm.
this show, they're like, it's a 3 hour show, whatever. But somewhere in there, he's breaking down like some crazy contract that they signed when they first got famous. I'm trying to remember the record label. Was it? I think it was Virgin Records or somebody who signed them, and he was like 22 years old, I think, when they signed. And they were like, "Oh, you're signing a 7 record deal, 14 years, and by the time you're done, you'll be 36 years old."
Mm.
And this is for an industry where your lifespan is 4 years tops.
Yeah.
So like you're set up to fail.
Yeah.
Like if you look at all the bands in the world, like imagine all the ones that didn't make it, that are in debt or lost money or have to pay back for the rest of their lives or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're lucky because they did make it. And he's now, God, I don't know if he's in his 50s now, I think, or early 50s, or, and they're still around. They're still touring, and they have a whole new deal with some other label. I think it's Sumerian Records, I think. And he tells a story that you can't leave. It's like the mafia, like you can't get out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
he was asked, why
Yeah.
not? He's like, why not? He goes, you're part of one of the biggest rock bands in the world. You had the biggest selling double record of all time at that when it came out. What's the story? Why can't you leave? And he's like, because somebody will always make it so enticing to you that it just brings you back in.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit. Like, it's so scary. It's like the days are gone where they wave money in front of you. They're like, here's 100,000. All you got to do is sign, and you got to give us 4 albums, right? But they don't tell you that 4 albums is going to take 12 years, So, and people are excited. They're like, oh my God, let's sign. We're going to tour the world, make money, right? And of
Mm-hmm.
course, you're making pennies because they're making all the dollars, and then you end up with nothing. Or if you're lucky, you do survive those 12, 14 years and you continue your career and you make a new deal, And so yeah, it's all very, I don't know, it's very scary. But I also learned something new that I didn't know. If you're an artist today and you get approached by a record label, they don't want you for your music. They're probably gonna lose money on your music. You know what they want you for?
Touring.
No, because usually like touring's it's a good guess because touring is something the artist makes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the artist makes that money usually. That's why they tour so much. And merchandise, like you buy a band shirt, the artist makes that money usually, But what I didn't know is that nowadays, if you get signed to a big record contract label, they're looking to own you. So they're gonna lose money on your music, but if they can market you, they're gonna sell you to Apple. They're gonna sell you to Mac Cosmetics. They're gonna sell you to Ford for a car commercial. It's like they want to make you a brand and sell you to anybody and anything
Mm.
because they'll make money off you.
Yeah. Did you watch, what is his name? Walter Mercado?
Mm-hmm.
So Walter Mercado, you guys, is like this flamboyant astrologist
Right.
that is no longer with us, but he was huge in the Latin community internationally. He did speak English because he was Puerto Rican. So he would travel in the world. But there is a documentary that's currently on Netflix about his life. And essentially it covers why he disappeared out of nowhere. And it turns out that the guy who was his manager did exactly what you just said, trademarked his name, his image, you name it, and
Yeah.
he didn't realize it. And so the documentary kind of goes over that. And they interview the fucking manager, and he says he has no fucking regrets. It's so sad.
That's the worst.
It's on Netflix, guys. Walter Mercado. It's a really nice documentary. In the documentary, he obviously dies at the end, and you are sad and heartbroken to be like, this is why he disappeared.
Yeah.
And they interview the motherfucking manager, and you will hear him say, I don't regret anything on the fucking video. Like, I was like, fucking asshole. Like,
Damn.
yeah. So exactly what you said. And earlier you were talking about a 10 album deal. When you said that, I heard that and I cannot remember who the artist is, but I remember the artist saying the reason they put out so many albums, and I can't tell you who it is, was to get out of there and finish their contract. And it was recent, but it was an artist that was putting, it seemed like an album a year, boom, boom, boom. But their whole sole purpose was to get out of that contract.
That's crazy.
And I cannot remember. So when you said that, it triggered that memory, and I cannot remember who it is right now. But I do remember that. And so that's why they were putting the albums out.
God, imagine that. Imagine 10 albums times, I don't know, let's say, just to make it easy, let's say 10 tracks, right? That's 100 songs you're going to write that have to have some hit song. Some of them have to be good, right?
Yeah.
And then the question is, are they saving something for later, or is this really the best they got going on that they're releasing? It's like, it just feels so forced, because they have to just try to get out of this situation.
Yeah. And obviously, we know that there's the streaming services now. You can yourself, without being part of a record label, upload, if you meet certain requirements, right? Your music to certain streaming services.
Right.
So I know, I believe it was Chance the Rapper. That's how he got famous. He was putting his own music up.
Yes.
And so I know that there's definitely a definite shift right now in the music industry. And I think for the music industry, the record labels, I'm sure they're probably scrambling, trying to see how they can make money, right? There's so many independent small record labels that are putting good artists out. And because I'm able to search Tame Impala, something similar to it, right? I can find bands that I would never be sold by the radio stations.
Right.
I think radio stations are dead, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, now you have different radio situations and streaming. But I mean, you having worked in radio, I want to know your opinion. What's going on? Where is it headed? What do you think will happen with record labels? Because I'm assuming record labels and radio stations work together hand in hand, right?
They did.
So now what?
Yes. Yeah, it was I was there for all those years when it was a tight relationship, they would bring in, they're like, hey, we got a new artist, right? Like, I'll give you a perfect example. One day they came in, and this guy, I'm not going to mention his name, he gave me the CD, had a 3-song EP, and I'm like, what's this? Because, I looked at the title, and he's like, dude, you're going to like it. And I'm like, I don't listen to death metal, man, because the band was called The Killers. And he laughed. Right. and the Killers are huge. They're still around today. Not the original lineup, but still the same. Brandon Flowers, lead singer, and all that. But they're huge still. And the fact that that's the relationship. That's how it worked. They brought bands in. They said, "Hey, check this out," and it was a war. It's like it was Sony versus Warner Brothers, and it was Limp Bizkit and Korn and all these bands at the time. And Static X, and music evolved and it changed, and it was a constant flow of record people bringing music to the table. A lot of good stuff and a lot of bad stuff as well. But nowadays, because the whole thing with streaming and how in my opinion, how the record labels did not embrace the mistakes of of their past, how they dealt with like Napster, for example.
Yeah.
Like sure, people were stealing off Napster and all that. But where they failed was to embrace and understand it. Like they should have said, "Hey, let's see how we can work with this." Instead they said, "Nope, let's throw a bunch of lawsuits." And on top of that, okay, Apple is now a real thing. iTunes is a real thing. And guess what? These artists don't want to be a part of it. Like Metallica or Beastie Boys, or, there were a bunch of artists that were not on iTunes for many years, or any streaming. And those are the artists that, again, the labels just did not see the potential. And then you have a deal.
They did see the potential, but then I think they weren't getting paid anything, essentially, at first, right? They had to figure out, well, how are we going to get paid for each play?
Well, no, that's the thing. They were getting. Remember, this is before streaming. This is when you bought music online. Okay, so the deal, and I'm only gonna mention Apple because they were the biggest one who proposed it. They said 70-30 split. 70% you keep, 30% goes to Apple, right? And then after the first year, I think it drops down to 85-15, and it stays there, or something like that, right? But the record label said sure, so the labels were keeping 30%, but they were giving the artists pennies. So they were like, "Oh, no! You just got 100 million streams, but you're being paid 0.000003 cents per stream." So you do the math, they're not making millions, they're making thousands,
Yeah.
So
which is nothing.
And it's sad because that's not the Apple deal, that's the record label deal with the artists, And that came about because Spotify came out, and before Spotify was Pandora,
Yeah.
So
I love Pandora.
So all those services came out, and then that's when they came up with like, "Oh, let's give the artists pennies," and I'm like, "Ooh, shit, that's bad, that's not good," and that's when everything focused on. Okay, the bands now have to tour to make money, like tour more. Like before, a band would tour like, once a year, whatever. Now they're touring 18 months in a row,
Yeah, and crazy expensive tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Ticket prices went up, and then, they're making money off seats and ticket sales and merch, especially, So now people are going to shows, which is great. You go support your artists, They're going to get the album for free off of Spotify or Apple streaming or whatever, but they're going to hopefully buy a shirt and pay that $200 concert ticket. It's like, so it's just so
I've been
weird.
Guilty of it.
Yeah,
it really is. And so I guess my question to you is, where do we go from here?
Well, radio's dead. That's my opinion. I worked in radio. I love radio. I mean, I worked for the #1 alternative rock radio in the world, because we a lot of these artists, we broke them. We made their careers, and I was there for a lot of that. And those were exciting times, but those days are over. It's like, where I used to work, like everybody got let go. Now there's a minimal staff. And those on-air DJs are now the same voices in New York and Chicago and Miami, so they're doing way more work for no extra pay, and it's basically like, well, you don't want a beer, you could leave. There's a door. That's the attitude of the people who are in charge now. But they can say that because it's the same for no matter what company, whether it's iHeartMedia or if it's Entercom. Or whoever owns radio, it's the same everywhere. So, but then it's interesting because people like, let's say for example, that jumped ship, like Howard Stern, for example, he went to Sirius, right?
Yeah.
for $500 million or whatever it was. And it's like, okay, Sirius is cool, but now what? Because,
Because that's on the way out, I think.
well, you can't listen whenever you want, right? It's a live
Mm-hmm.
show, and on top of it, you have to pay for it. So obviously, he does have his loyal followers who do pay for it, right? But it's a live show. So I think this is the big problem is that,
Now we got podcasts.
well, yeah, but aside from the podcast, we have music on demand.
Mm-hmm.
Right now,
Yeah.
I can hit pause and we could just listen to, Janet Jackson, or we could listen to, you know, a Monica, or we could just stream whatever we want right now. It's at our fingertips.
Yeah. It's on our fingertips.
Before, like like you said, you mentioned before, you would wait in front of the radio to listen for that song to come on,
Mm-hmm.
or you would record it on cassette tape if you were back in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
But
So old, guys.
yeah. But
But you know what? I appreciate that shit now. I really do.
I do
Childhood
too.
experiences. Yeah.
I do too, because it's like now it's just so convenient. It's like it's magically anywhere in my house I can queue up music. I can just stream it to my computer or my television or whatever, But the sad thing is, like, that's killed, a lot of it for the artist. It's killed it,
Yeah.
Where it's like if your favorite artist survived, it's because they got lucky, or they're still doing it out of love, or or something. But who knows who these other great bands would have been, or how big they would have gotten if this would not have happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
And now it's completely changed, right? So we talked about Chance the Rapper earlier, who pretty much put his own stuff out there.
yeah,
And he got famous. So people
right,
are like, I'm going to make my own music video. I'm going to make my own music.
Right.
Where you and I here, I never thought I would be hosting a podcast, but here I am, right? Technology has made it so that where people can be their own producers at home, make
Right.
good quality music, right?
Yep.
Learn it, put it out there. And so where does the big record labels come in? I mean, I'm sure they're losing a lot of money. Obviously, we still have, the big artists that have money that can catch everyone. But I feel like a big chunk of people, I'm sure including you and me,
Right.
like to hear music that's not mainstream,
Right.
that isn't part of a big label. And so I'm curious to see what happens.
Well, I'll give you a hint.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the number one downloaded artist right now online?
Online, like that's famous, or
Yeah, I'll give you a hint. She's my neighbor.
where do you live again?
You ever heard of Billie Eilish?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
she's the number one downloaded. Like, her record came out, mind you, recorded in her home by her and her brother, produced by her brother, made
Exactly.
on a Mac computer by her brother in the living room and bedroom. That record sounds so amazing. Okay, mind you, it's not my genre. It's not what I listen to. She's not my demographic and all that, But I gave it so much respect, and there was so much anticipation. That record came out and it was the number one of all time download. It still is, okay? On top of that, Apple paid her $25 million to make a documentary about the making of that record, which will be out sometime, probably late this year or next year, not sure when.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine that.
Yeah.
So maybe, like I mentioned before, the record labels are not looking for you for your music anymore. They want to see what else,
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we put her in a Chanel commercial? Can she sell this product? And the thing is, they own you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the craziest things I heard, and it was actually going back to the Billy Corgan interview with Joe Rogan, was he mentioned the contract he signed said any music released in this universe or any universe yet to be discovered. Think about that.
Yeah.
They basically just said, we own you everywhere. That's the scary part. But
Yeah.
that's the future. And it's like, I guess we embrace it. Why? Because everybody now is a social media influencer, right? Your singer is
Mm-hmm.
now pushing perfume and pushing workout video, whatever,
Yeah.
and maybe you sell your soul to the devil and that's what you do, and it's huge money. Or maybe you become Chance the Rapper and learn what he did, and a do-it-yourself career, where if you have a product, if your music is good and you're able to sign these deals independently and whatever, make your own waves and all that, that's the future. I mean, if you ask me, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No longer do we need record labels. Before they were needed to get your songs out in Europe and Russia and China and all over the world. Now they're not. Now you upload it to whatever streaming service yourself, and it goes live around the world immediately.
Yeah. Sweet stuff.
Yeah. So times have definitely changed, and it's sadly radio lost because they were short sighted. They didn't evolve. They didn't evolve when they needed to.
They thought they were never gonna drown or sink.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate truth, and I was there for the highest ratings of all time. I was there for the biggest bands of all time. And now it's like I'll turn on and there's bands I've never even heard of with some silly name, and I'm listening and I'm like, what's this? It's almost like they're just trying to put anything out, and I can't see, I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. It's there's no like good barometer anymore because people are not listening to the radio. People are listening to their own private catalogs on their devices
Of what they like.
right.
So there might be people that might like that. And
Right.
yeah. So I guess in that sense, look at the bright side. Maybe people who wanted a certain type of music wouldn't get it are now getting it
Right.
with all the independent people out there. But there are people who will say that the best times of music are over. And so it could be just them being nostalgic too. Just like I'm like, I feel that way about certain genres,
Right.
But,
I think the era of not so much that the best times of music are over. I think the era of like the rock star days, and the
mm-hmm.
era of like the crazy hip hop days with like giraffes in your music videos and all that stuff, and like crazy multi-million dollar, productions and all that. I think those days might be over. But when I spend time on social media and I come across, these unknown names of people playing guitar or singing and all that, and I'm thinking, there's a lot of talent out there. I think that the future future is definitely bright for music. It's just going to evolve into something new again, and it's going to become more do-it-yourself. The YouTube generation, the TikTokers, it's like that's the next generation to be discovered, and that's how they're going to be discovered, and that's the next big thing. Of course, everybody wants a piece of that pie too. But if you do it yourself, if you're out there listening to this and you are an artist trying to do it yourself, you can do it yourself, and you can make it just as big. It just takes creativity. That's all.
Yeah. Creativity and perseverance and patience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it is possible. We have several people who are signed to labels after making it big. Not, they didn't make it big, after signing. No, they signed multi-million-dollar like label after they got big,
Right.
because they did it on their own. And so it is possible. And, we just have to get with the times, and, we have technology where everyone can learn. I am a nurse and I'm editing in my own home, like.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm able to do this, and by no means am I famous or anything, but what I'm getting at is that some people out there are way more creative than I am, and they, with the vision, right? And they have the passion. I mean, they
Right.
can be like Billie Eilish.
Right.
Yeah. It's doable, guys. You guys, it's doable. Do it.
Yep. Yeah.
Don't let anybody tell you can't. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself and do it for yourself. Everything will follow.
Yeah. What Mary said. Yeah.
That's my inspirational talk for the day.
There you go.
So I guess when we end this conversation, is there any new acts that you like right now
Wow, new
that
acts.
maybe aren't the biggest, but you're like, I dig what they're doing.
There's a lot of I don't know. I mean, I don't know if, because the stuff I listen to is just crosses all over the place. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. There's people that have popped out. Who I've been following for like 7 years, and then all of a sudden they're in the mainstream, and I'm like, holy shit. And for the strangest reasons. For example, there's an artist. Her name is Molly Tuttle. I don't know if you've heard of her.
No, but I'm gonna
She
look her up.
she has an autoimmune disease. It's alopecia, I believe, where she has no hair.
Mm.
So I didn't know this because I've always seen her YouTube videos. She's always wearing hair, but it's been a wig. And she's an amazing bluegrass guitarist. But recently, she did a lot of covers for her latest album that just got released. She took a bunch of songs from like punk bands and from different artists, and she covered them. And it's like something different, something unique. And so like all of a sudden, she popped up on one of my one of the big podcasts I listen to, and I'm like, oh damn! I'm like, if that guy is aware of who she is, then I know she's making it big.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's people like her. I mean, there's some smaller bands here and there. There's bands that I thought were gone away, but they're still at it. They're still working. I can't think of any other names right now off the top of my head.
It's okay.
But they're out there. Trust me.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I like a lot that I can't name either. But it's definitely, if I were to go through my Apple, half of it is like really famous stuff and the other half is like just stuff that
Obscure.
I Shazammed or it just clicked with my musical ear and I was like, damn, I totally dig this.
Yeah.
The intellectual side of my brain. I was like, ooh, speaking to my soul.
It's a big side, yo.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Wait, is that a compliment or?
Oh my God, she missed the compliment, so I take that back now.
I'm so terrible. That's one thing like I'm dreading about whenever I decide to start dating is like I'm a horrible compliment receiver.
Hey, we talked about that.
Have we?
Yes, we have.
Mm.
I told you once. I remember. I told you one of my biggest pet peeves is women not taking compliments.
Yeah, sorry.
Dude.
Oh, I know. Ah.
If you want that man, you gotta be able to take them. Because trust me, he's out there. He's gonna give them to you.
Yeah, like I remember when they would be like, "Oh, you look cute today," or "Te ves guapa," or something, and I would be like, "Oh, okay." Like I was almost like taken aback and like awkward after that. Like I get awkward. I'm like that awkward girl. I don't know why. I should be like, thank you, and like flip my hair, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, I know. I'm going to work on it.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I was in a relation. I told you a story. I was in a long relationship with somebody who could not take a compliment. And that it just killed me because it's like, look, the compliments is sincere. It's not like I'm after anything or trying to get anywhere. It's just to tell you that, hey, you look beautiful in this outfit. You look beautiful today. Like you look amazing, like great, nice hair, nice eye. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's so weird when, it's like, like, don't say that. Like, oh, don't, just stop. And it's like, how about just say thank you? It's so simple.
Yeah.
So simple.
So simple, but we make it so complicated.
Damn women.
Damn it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me again, Leonie. I did miss you last week, so this was fun.
Yeah, always a fun time with you.
Yay. We're going to do it again, for sure.
Nice.
Yay. I keep going, yay. See, I'm like, yay.
Yeah.
Positivity.
Yeah, right? Give me a P.
P.
Give me an O.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Wait, okay. Okay. I'm like, wait, what are you going to spell before I spell it?
I could go anywhere, so.
Yeah, I know. After I said, oh, I was like, wait a minute, but what are you going to spell?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
All right. Well, I hope you guys join us next time. Bye. That was episode 30 of the Purposely Curious podcast. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on most podcast platforms. And follow us on social media at Purposely Curious on Instagram and at Purposely C Pod on Twitter. That's Purposely, the letter C, Pod. Until next time, you know what to do.